What's up? This is Coffee and Kabbalah and Coffee. It is 19th of Adar, 5796, Sunday, March 8th. And you may be thinking, Big Dog, you're running out of fucking steam doing these things. I'll be like, I know. Why? It's very repetitive. We've got to change it up. But perhaps we won't do that until we are at day 100. All right. No one knows for sure. Elu Divrei Elohim Chaim, but this is the Mazor we live by. All right. I got 99 Zerisim, but a bitch ain't one. Chilla's on Murex Trunkless. What's that fucking Pokemon? Thing for the CT. Golas at Diaspora. Chabad is Cham, understanding knowledge. Knife Shechita is slaughter. Shochet is slaughter. Badika is examination or inspection. Chalaf is the instrument of sharpness used to perform Shechita. Halakha, the body of Jewish law, halakha, in accordance with halakha, kosher, correct, fit, appropriate according to the laws of Judaism. Nevela, an animal that was not slaughtered by Shechita. Shechita, the Jewish religious humane method of slaughtering animals and poultry for food. Shochet, the person who performs Shechita, qualified with a thorough knowledge of Jewish law, animal anatomy, and pathology, and licensed by both religious and civic authorities. Torah, the source of all Jewish teaching and law, also referred to as the law of Moses. Treifot, literally torn, generally used to denote non-kosher food. Za'ar ba'alei chayim, the Jewish teaching that cruelty to animals diminishes man's own ethical and moral standing, and that it is contrary to Jewish law to cause animals pain or distress. The shochet must be learned in the laws of kosher slaughter and adept at sharpening and polishing his knives, known as shtelen chalaf in Yiddish. He also trains under he or she. We're gonna change it here or she. I'm not even change it she or he. Nah, I don't want them doing that. Do all this shit. He or she also trains under. But what about? I don't know. Change it up, baby. She or he. Under an experienced shochet to learn how to hold the animal firmly, to slaughter it quickly and smoothly. Often, but not always, the shochet is also trained a bodek, a checker, who examines the organs of the animal to ensure it was healthy at the time of death. In the modern factory setup, these tasks are often divided. Gay kaken after like Diane, may Hashem and guard you. May Hashem shine upon you and be gracious to you. May Hashem lift his face to you and grant peace. Akin ani madaber ivrit mekrayit afshay. Bofwal anaknu amurin ledaber Yiddish o ulai armit. Shegam otan ani yako ledaber meziyamet. Aval ani ma'adif. Anglit laken bo'u nedaber anglit zenishma tov lecha. Indeed, I speak English. Indeed, I speak Hebrew. Indeed, I speak Hebrew, mainly biblical Hebrew, although in practice we are supposed to speak Yiddish or perhaps Aramaic. I can also speak to some extent, but I prefer English. Therefore, let's speak English. Does that sound good to you? Nagira hava, nagira hava, nagira ve'nismecha hava, nagira hava, nagira hava, nagira ve'nismecha hava neranena. Hava neranena ve'nismecha. Hava neranena Havaneranena, Havaneranena, Venismecha, Achim, Urachim, Belev Sameach, Urachim, Belev Sameach, Urachim, Belev Sameach, Urachim, Belev Sameach, Urachim, Belev Sameach. Hey! Hava, Nagila, Nagila, Venismecha. Hava, Nagila, Nagila, Venismecha. Hava, Neranena, Venismecha. Hava, Neranena, Venismecha. Achim, Urachim, Belev Sameach, Urachim, Belev Sameach, Urachim, Belev Sameach, Urachim, Belev Sameach, Belev Sameach. Alright, go start, bro. Alright, summary in one flow. Death, soul separation, spiritual award, possible reincarnation, spiritual repair, resurrection, body plus soul reunited, olam haba, perfected, embodied, eternal world. 5 levels: soul, nefesh, action, vitality, ruach, emotion, neshama, intellect, chaya, transcendent life force, yechida, absolute unity with God. Before the Torah reading, Baraka lifnei hakaraya. Reader calls Baruch Hu Ed Adonai Hamavarach. Congregation responds Baruch Adonai Hamavarach L'Olam Va'ed. Person called to the Torah repeats Baruch Adonai Hamavarach L'Olam Va'ed. Blessing before the reading. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Baru Makal Ha'amim Benatan Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notan HaTorah. After the Torah reading, Baruch La'achar HaKaraya. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chayei Olam Nota Botokenu Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Yora he may teach, Yadin he may judge, Yatir Becharot he may permit firstborns. Torah, 5 books of Moses, Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Devarim, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Nevi'im, prophets, former prophets, Yehoshua, Shoftim, Shmuel, Malachim, Joshua, Judges, Samuel, Kings, latter prophets, Nevi'im, Acharonim, Yeshayahu, Yirmiyahu, Yechezkel, Trei Asar, Hosea, Yoel, Amos, Obadiah, Yonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. Ketuvim writings: Tehillim, Mishlei, Eob, Psalms, Proverbs, Job. 5 Megillot: Shir HaShirim, Ruth, Micah, Kohelet, Esther, Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, Divrei HaYamim. Ruth, Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, Esther, Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, Chronicles. Many contemporary Jewish communities have a special board to whom traveling collectors can present their bona fides, medical bills, letters from local rabbis, etc., in exchange for a letter of recommendation known as a hamlatza. A shadchan is a matchmaker, suggests prospective marriage mates, and then coaches them through the dating process. The term is linked to the word shidduch, which means to match. The technical of the word of Aramaic provenance is actually down, since the newly matched couple settle their differences before beginning their new life together. A shadchan can be either male or female, is more properly called a shadchan in Yiddish and a shadchanet in Hebrew. The plural form is shadchanim. In Yiddish, to suggest a shidduch is to read speak a shidduch. Shadchanas refers to both the lack. Shadchanas refers to both the act of matchmaking, so you can say that a shadchan is of shadchanas, as well as the money traditionally given to a shadchan for his or her services, which would more accurately be referred to as shadchanas guild. Shadchanas money. Rabbi is teacher. Musmak is a sovereign judicial authority. What classical smicha actually did in a Talmudic system, smicha granted authority to judge capital cases, authority to impose knassot, Torah fines, authority to establish the calendar, membership in a Sanhedrin, jurisdiction rooted in Eretz Israel. Modern rabbis cannot execute, impose biblical fines, declare new months by testimony, recreate national sovereignty law. Musmak refers to a person who has traditional judicial authority. Torah as multi-layered, Peshat, simple meaning, Remez, hint, Derash, homiletic, Sod, secret. Mishaberek, that means may he who blesses. Vort refers to the basin or bowl used in the Netilat Yadayim ritual, often paired with a cup. Kli Rishon, the original pot or container placed directly on a heat source, food or liquid in this vessel is considered hot enough to continue cooking. Added ingredients, for instance, spices or salt on Shabbat, which is prohibited. Kli Shni, a vessel in which hot food or liquid has been poured from a Kli Rishon, it is significantly cooler and the risk of cooking is reduced. Kli Shishi, a vessel into which hot food or liquid has been transferred from a Kli Sheni, it is even cooler and cooking is generally not a concern. While not the cup itself, the kvort is part of a hand-washing set, especially in Ashkenazi tradition. I got all the hype of that shit right now. Why? Because you've got other shit to review. I want to get into Equipte and rich mystical schools, baby. All right. What the fuck is this shit? It's athleticism. Here I am.
Now 22. Marechet Ha'elu, System of Divinity. Author anonymous, possibly connected with the school of Rabbi Yosef Gikatilla. Date 14th century. Genre: systematic Kabbalistic theology explaining the structure of divine emanation. This work presents a structured explanation of how the divine realm operates through the Sephirot, divine emanations. The book attempts to organize earlier teachings found in Sefer HaZohar, Book of Splendor, and Share Orah, Gates of Light, into a clear theological system. General structure of the book. Introduction. Purpose of the work: to explain the Ma'aretic system or structure of divine reality, to clarify how the Ein Sof and infinite divine relates to the created world, to describe the functioning of the Sephirot, divine emanations, as a unified organism. Main idea: God in essence remains unknowable. However, the divine becomes known through the structured emanations of the Sephirot. The divine structure. Ein Sof, the infinite. Topics discussed: God beyond all attributes, absolute unity without limitation, the source from which the Sephirot emerge. Key teaching: the Ein Sof, infinite divine, cannot be described directly. All knowledge of God occurs through the emanated stream. 3. Emergence of the Sephirot, divine emanations. Themes: the Sephirot emerge as channels of divine revelation. They function as vessels through which divine light flows. Each Sephira expresses a distinct attribute of the divine. The 10 Sephirot discussed include 1. Kata, crown; 2. Chachama, wisdom; 3. Bina, understanding; 4. Chesed, loving kindness; Kavua, strength or judgment; 6. Tiferet, beauty or harmony; 7. Netzach, victory or eternity; 9. Yesod, foundation; 10. Malakut, organization of the divine system. 4. 3 major realms. The work describes the Sephirot operating in a structured hierarchy. Intellectual realm: upper Sephirot, Ketel, Chachama, wisdom, pedantic, function. These represent the divine intellect and the origins of creation. Emotional realm: middle Sephirot, Chassid, lovingness, Gvura, judgment, Teferim, function. These govern the moral and emotional attributes through which God relates to the world. Active realm: baptism, victory, Yitzhak, Dashut, function. These transmit divine energy into the world. Manifestation: final Sephira, Malakut, kingship, function, point where divine energy becomes manifest within creation, associated with the Shekinah, divine presence. Flow of divine energy. 5. Chain of emanation. The system describes a descending flow. Ein Sof, infinite divine; Katau, wisdom; Bina, understanding; emotional Sephirot, Malkut, kingship, creation. This process is often described as Hashva'ah, divine flow or emanation, unity of the Sephirot. 6. Interconnected structure. Key principles: the Sephirot are not separate gods. They represent different expressions of one divine unity. Each Sephira influences the others. The book frequently emphasizes Achdut, divine unity. Role of human action. Human influence on the divine system. Human actions affect the divine system. Examples: mitzvot, commandments, increase harmony within the Sephirot. Avirot, transgressions, create imbalance. This concept is often described as tikkun, spiritual repair. Prayer and mystical intention. 8. Kavanah, mystical intention. The work teaches that proper intention during prayer directs divine energy through the Sephirot. Prayer becomes a means of restoring balance, elevating the Shekinah, divine presence. Symbolism and metaphors. Common symbolic models. The divine system is described through several metaphors: tree structure, human body, channels of light, royal kingdom. These metaphors help explain the unity and flow of the divine system. Influence of the work. 10. Historical importance. Ma'areshet Ha'elahut, system of divinity, became an important bridge between early Sefer HaZohar, Book of Splendor, mysticism, and later Kabbalistic systems. The book influenced Spanish Kabbalah, early Sefer mystics, later systematic Kabbalistic writings. Summary: Ma'areshet Ha'elahut, system of divinity, explains the entire structure of divine reality as a unified system. The work describes how the Ein Sof emanates the Sephirot, divine attributes. These Sephirot interact with one another and ultimately bring divine presence into the world through Malkut, kingship. If you would like, I can also show you something very helpful for understanding. 2. The three major medieval diagrams of the spherot, divine emanations used by Kabbalists.
Now we're good. Chai. Something so pleasurable I could raise the dead. So Robertson says after we stood up. Halavai, if only I wish. Somebody says before we stood up. Yiddish cup, Jewish hat, a Jewish head Yanto to talk a bit from the fetish of mine. Yanta to talk a bit kind of fetish of mine. Talkless, brass tacks, getting down to business. It means end, entirety, ultimate purpose. Nosh means a snack. Snacking on pussy. Noshing on pussy. Bash shirt, that's soulmate. Bashirta is a female soulmate. Bashirta is a male soulmate. Mishmash, I was taking a bath. That was a mixture. Upkiss means nothing. Good Yanta means good day. Means life. Harv means neutral. Black kosher means smooth fit. Mensch means good dude. Mencha should be a thing for women. Yiddish Seductus Freud, like a good lady. Is a woman of valor. Skoyak is short for Yasha Koch, which is short for Yayasha Kokaka, which means may your strength be directed forward. Orve means shit. Stettel means a town. Strimel means a hat. Shadel means a wig. Milchig is dairy. Fleischig is meat. Harv means neutral. Hamish means homie. Shmata means rags. Schwiger means mother-in-law. Chazir means pig. Chazer means to repeat. Schlep means to carry a burden. Meshuggah means wow and crazy guys. Gonf means thief. Yarm means could be Aaron and all of the king means torn. Yortzeit means clutch means wooden. This means wooden plank, some shit. Piece of wood. Can also mean clumsy or a fool. Needlelock means matzo ball. Like noodle. Needle. Beggar means dirt. Schmooze for benchings, blessings. Shadchan means a matchmaker. A shadchanta is a female matchmaker. A shit is a match. Vetch, maven. Expert Shanda is shame. Shachki means trinkets. Klotz means to burst. Macher means like an important person. Kvel means to like experience joy from people. Balagon means a circus. Stable A stable is the Yiddish diminutive form of stub, which means house. It commonly refers to a small informal house of prayer. Thus, while a shul, which is actually related to the English word school, refers to a larger, more organized synagogue, a stable is hamish, home, is a homey affair, where the pews may be second-hand. Reception is probably served on tables where prayer took place just moments before. True to its name, a shtibel may often be a converted house or storefront that has not been entirely renovated. The typical urban American shtibels were built in the mid-20th century and occupy a single gutted floor of a with wood-paneled walls and movable barrier or curtain divides men and women. It is fairly typical, but not required, for such a shtibel to have a men's mikvah in the basement, creating a one-stop prayer experience for its patrons. The plural of shtibel is shtibelach. In Israel, a complex with multiple prayer rooms where one can find another prayer service beginning every few minutes is referred to collectively as a shtibelach. Shtibels by other names. In some communities, a shtibel may also be called a kloitz. And indeed, in our Chassidim, for example, refer to places of worship by that name. The term kloitz, however, carries with it an air of exclusivity, which is absent from the public, humble, and welcoming shtibel. Base midrash, base midrash, often pronounced bis midrash in Yiddish or beit midrash in modern Hebrew, is a Hebrew term that means house of study. Unlike the synagogue, where the primary activity is praying, the base midrash is used mostly for Torah study, even though prayer happens there as well. Since a shtibel is often home to Torah classes, it may be known as a midrash. Cheder Sheni Chabad Nitza. A large synagogue may often have a main sanctuary. A large room is not an issue. A smaller sanctuary for everyday prayers. This was known as a Cheder Sheni, Hebrew for a sex, since the Chabad Chassidim who prayed in the room afforded them. In the Soviet era, the Chab Nitzas in the large synagogues and underground activities carried out by the brave Chabad Hasidim who taught Torah and Jewish observance to their fellow Jews. The enforcement who invariably took note of all the babies no longer breathing down anyone's backs. Enter our stabelach, and all we need to worry about is finding if missing any pages. And all we need to do is worry. All we need to worry about is finding a prayer book that is not missing and a nice, comfortable seat at the table. Cool story, bro. Thanks, babies. Now what? DIY, baby. Torah study. So, that's it.
Hi, this week we're going to be taught the mitzvah, divine precept of Torah study. The Torah means instruction. And the Torah are God's instructions to humanity to maximize potential on earth. And so the Torah needs to be studied in order for us to know how to live, how to behave. What does God expect us to do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, monthly or yearly? Does God have different expectations from different people? Are different times unique? All these issues are addressed in the Torah. When we talk about Torah study, however, we're talking about internalizing a godly essence. You see, if the idea comes from God and you study it, You understand it. You appreciate it. Now it's your idea. And if it's idea, or it's become one with you, then you have achieved a wondrous unity with the divine energy. Our sages tell us, though, that the mitzvah of Torah study specifically is only about learning so that we can do or follow. Just studying, gaining knowledge, becoming wiser in the ways of God's wisdom is a supreme mitzvah, a wonderful deed, an opportunity to attach and connect ourselves to God in and of itself. And so the Torah is studied all the time. In fact, the scripture says clearly we should engage or involve in Torah study. There are working people who grab a free moment in the morning, some people who have a moment in the afternoon, some people who make sure to maximize their evenings. But a Jew who wishes to develop his or her spiritual potential must always be studying Torah. It will only be appropriate for us to point out that while there are 613 distinctly different mitzvot, 248 are positive, things that you do, 300 are things that we avoid. It is written that Talmud Torah, or the study of Torah, keneged kulam, equals all of the other mitzvahs. To be sure, any time a person studies the Torah, uses those basic principles in order to delve into or discover new vistas or horizons, one is actually connecting to God, and one is discovering the wisdom, the mysteries, and the magic of the continued transmission or the continued relationship, and in a sense, revelation of Sinai. The Torah, the Word of God, continues to live on in our hearts and minds. So the Torah is divided into two segments. There is the written Torah that the world calls the scriptures, and then there is the oral Torah or tradition. This came from Moses, Sinai, and he passed on. Joshua replaced him as being the administrator, the teacher, the one responsible for the continued transmission of those oral traditions. So I know what you're thinking. The oral tradition, yes, somebody told somebody who told somebody else. Broken telephone, right? It's very important to understand that preserving the authenticity of that tradition was something that was of paramount importance. The greatest minds, the most capable and talented Jewish people, for a period of more than 1,500, devoted themselves to nothing but maintaining the authentic line of tradition, ensuring lose it or lose. And when you study the Talmud, which is the oral traditions, you'll find a great deal of honesty and integrity. The sages were uncertain of or unclear about. They stated exactly that. And whatever we are unsure about is well documented. This is well known. What we need to realize is this was no haphazard transmission. And so that oral tradition and its novel applications to us represent a direct connection to the last time there was mass revelation for all of humanity, which we as Jewish people believe in. And so Torah was given to us from Sinai and passed down through Moses to Joshua to elders and prophets until the men of the Great Assembly during the Second Temple period began to articulate those concepts and those ideas into the body known as Mishnah, subsequently Gemara or the Talmud, and the later commentaries and writings which are studied with great devotion till this very day.
Cool story, bro. All right, now what? Yo, dog, I've heard, whether this is accurate or not, that Judaism is really just based on EGYPT. What are some similarities? And that, like, perhaps Moses just got this information or based a lot of it on that? What's going on with all that? I like this part of doing it the most, where I'm just like, oh, I got a question about this.
That idea circulates quite a bit. However, historians and scholars generally say creation is more complicated than the claim that Judaism simply comes from Egyptian mystery schools. It is better to think in terms of cultural contact and influence, not direct borrowing or derivation. I will explain the main viewpoints. Number 1. The historical setting. According to the Torah, the Israelites lived in Egypt before the Yetziat Mitzrayim, exodus from Egypt under the leadership of Moses. This means Israelites were exposed to Egyptian culture. Egyptian religion was one of the most developed religious systems of the ancient world. Because of this, some scholars investigate whether Egyptian ideas influenced Israelite religion. However, influence does not mean the religions were the same. Similarities. People point to these similarities are sometimes used to support the Egyptian mystery school. 1. Wisdom tradition. Ancient Egypt had a genre called instruction texts, wisdom teachings passed from teacher to student. Example, Egyptian text, instruction of Amenemopi. Scholars noticed similarities between this and Mishlei, Book of Proverbs, in the Hebrew Bible. This suggests cultural exchange in the ancient Near East, shared wisdom traditions. Number 2, ethical teachings. Egyptian religion emphasized ma'at, meaning cosmic order, justice, and truth. Some parallels exist with tzedek, righteousness, moral order, and ethical behavior. These occur across many cultures. Chapter 3, creation themes. Myths describe creation emerging from primordial waters. In the Torah, Bereshit, Genesis, describes creation beginning with waters. Example concept, Tehum, the deep waters. Scholars often say this reflects shared ancient Near Eastern cosmology, not direct copying. Number 4, initiation traditions. Egypt had temple priesthoods and esoteric religious knowledge, sometimes called mystery traditions. Later Jewish mysticism, such as Merkava, chariot mysticism, Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, also secret. However, the time gap is enormous. Egyptian mysteries, mostly 2000, Merkava texts, about 200 to 600, about 1100 CE onward. Because of this gap, scholars do not see a direct lineage. Major differences between Judaism and Egyptian religion. These differences: monotheism versus polytheism, had many gods, Ra, Osiris, Isis. Judaism emphasizes Yahweh, the God of Israel, strict monotheism. The Torah repeatedly warns against Egyptian religion. Number 2, opposition to Egyptian religion. Many commandments directly reject Egyptian practices. Example, prohibition of idolatry, rejection of animal worship, rejection of divine kingship. Egyptian religion worshipped animals such as bulls and cats. The Torah forbids such practices. 3, the role of the Exodus story. The narrative of Yetziat Mitzrayim, Exodus from Egypt, frames Egypt as a place of false worship. This story functions of Egyptian theology, not an adoption. Why the theory became popular. The Judaism comes from Egyptian mysteries idea became popular in modern times. Some reasons include 1, interest in Egypt after archaeological discoveries. 2, esoteric movements in the 1800s and early 1900s. 3, historical theories. 4, Freemasonic traditions linking wisdom to ancient Egypt. These movements often connect Moses with Egyptian priesthood. However, historians generally say the evidence for this is weak. What most scholars say today. Modern scholarship holds the following view. Israelite religion developed from ancient Canaanite culture, interaction with Mesopotamian traditions, local West Semitic religion, later theological development. Egypt certainly influenced the region culturally. However, Judaism was not simply derived from Egyptian mystery schools. Short summary. There are some similarities because Israelites lived in the same ancient world as Egypt. However, the core ideas of Judaism, especially monotheistic covenant theology, differ from religion. Most scholars think ancient Near Eastern cultural environment, not Egyptian mysteries. If you want, I can also show you something fascinating that many people do not know. There are 3 places where Egyptian ideas might actually have influenced the Bible in a more concrete way, including one very interesting possible connection with Akhenaten. Good question. There are indeed 3 areas where scholars sometimes notice interesting parallels between ancient Egyptian religion and the Hebrew Bible. None of them prove that Judaism came from Egyptian mystery schools. However, they show that Israelites lived within the same ancient cultural environment. I will explain the 3 most commonly discussed examples. Number 1. The hymn to Aten and Tehillim Kud, Tehillim 104, Psalm 104. One of the most famous comparisons involves Akhenaten, Egypt, in the 14th century BCE, and promoted worship of the sun disk called Aten. A poetic text called the Tehillim 104, Psalm 104. In both texts, both describe God for animals, day and night cycles, humans working by day and resting by night, all life depending on divine energy. Example concept in the psalm, Brokei nafshi et Yua, bless the Lord, O my soul. Important point, most scholars say this likely reflects shared poetic style and worldview of the ancient Near East rather than direct copying. Number 2, Egyptian wisdom, literature and Mishlei, Proverbs. Another connection involves wisdom literature. An Egyptian text called the Amenemope resembles sections of Mishlei, Book of Proverbs. Example parallels include teachings about humility, honesty, avoiding exploitation of the poor, controlling speech. Some scholars think Israelite scribes may have been aware of Egyptian wisdom traditions. However, wisdom teaching circulated widely throughout the ancient world. Therefore, influence could have come from several directions. Number 3, the name Moses. The name Moses, may have an Egyptian linguistic connection. Egyptian names often contain the elements, or Mos, meaning born of. Examples include Thutmose, Ramesses II. These names originally meant Thutmose, born of Thoth, Ra of Ra. Because of this, some scholars think the name Moshe may have Egyptian linguistic roots. Interestingly, the Torah itself gives a Hebrew explanation, for I drew him out of the water. This appears in Shemot 2, Exodus chapter 2. Important differences remain even with these similarities. Animal ways. Judaism emphasizes Wikwa, the God of Israel, ethical monotheism, rejection of idolatry. What historians conclude? Most scholars conclude that Israelite religion developed within the ancient Near Eastern cultural environment. That environment included Egypt, Canaan, Mesopotamia. Therefore, we see shared poetic imagery, similar wisdom traditions, overlapping cosmological language. However, the theological core of Judaism developed a distinct direction. Summary. There are a few interesting parallels between Egyptian texts and parts of the Hebrew Bible. However, historians generally reject the claim that Judaism came directly from Egyptian mystery schools. The similarities are better explained by cultural contact within the ancient Near East. If you want, I can also explain something very interesting related to your earlier Kabbalah study. Some people claim that Sephirot, divine emanations, resemble Egyptian divine structures. The comparison is fascinating. However, it also contains several misconceptions. Would you like to explore that topic as well? This is a fascinating topic. Some people claim that the Sephirot, divine emanations in Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, resemble structures in Egyptian religion. There are a few surface similarities, but most historians say the systems developed independently. I will show both the similarities people mention and the differences. Number 1, ancient Egyptian religion often organized gods into structured families or groups. Example is the Ennead. The Ennead was a group of 9 gods with the city of Heliopolis. Members included Atum, Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Osiris, Isis, Set, Horus. The structure describes how the universe emerged through successive generations of gods. Because the Ennead has a structured cosmos, compare it to the Sephirot. Number 2, surface similarities with the Sephirot. The Sephirot, divine emanations, also structured system through which divine energy flows. Examples include Keter, crown, Chachama, Chokma, wisdom, Beinah, understanding, Gevura, strength, Tiferet, beauty, Nectary, Hod, splendor, Yesod, foundation, Malkut, kingship. Both layers of cosmic structure, relationships between divine creative power into the world. Because of this, some writers claim the systems are related. However, the similarities mostly end there. Number 3, major differences. Egyptian system. The Egyptian system combined beings. Each god has its own personality, has myths and stories, sometimes fights. For example, Set kills Osiris in Egyptian mythology. The Kabbalistic system. Kabbalistic system. The Sephirot are not separate gods. Kabbalists emphasize Ein Sof, infinite divine, is the only true divine reality. The attributes, channels, manifestations of one god. The system remains strictly monotheistic. Number 4, historical timeline problem. Another important difference involves time. Egyptian religion flourished 3000 BCE to about 300 BCE. The Sephirot system developed much later. Early hint Bahir, Sefer HaBahir, book of 1170 CE. Major development in Sefer Zohar, book of splendor, around 1280 CE. That means more than 3 separate the systems. Because of this gap, historians see no direct line of transmission. Number 5, where Sephirot actually come from. Scholars usually trace the Sephirot concept to several Jewish sources. Biblical symbolism. Examples include divine wisdom, divine attributes, the throne visions in Yechezkel. Merkava mysticism. Early Jewish mysticism focused on the Merkava, divine chariot visions in Ezekiel. These traditions appear in texts such as Haikalot Ravati, Haikalot Rabati, greater palaces, Haikalot Zutati, lesser palaces. Medieval philosophy. Jewish thinkers were influenced by philosophy, which described reality as flowing from a single source. This philosophical idea resembles the Kabbalistic concept of emanation. Number 6, why people Egypt and Kabbalah. The connection became popular mainly in modern times. Groups such as occult movement, Hermetic traditions. Some esoteric writers like to link all mythical systems to ancient Egypt. Because Egypt symbolized ancient secret wisdom, many traditions were retroactively connected to it. Summary, there are superficial similarities between Egyptian cosmology, Sefirot, Sephirot, divine emanations, because both describe structured universes. However, Egyptian religion is polytheistic. Kabbalah is strictly monotheistic. The systems developed thousands of years of philosophy, not from Egyptian mysteries. There is actually a much more interesting connection that scholars sometimes discuss. It involves possible Canaanite roots of some biblical imagery about Yahweh, the God of Israel, before strict monotheism developed. That topic reveals a lot about the early development of Israelite religion.
All right, Shabbos to say good morning. Good morning. Let us begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning shirt today. Our annual Torah sponsor, Wilson Mishpach Eretz Yisrael, dedicating all the Rosh this year as a Zechus. Our Bartolo sponsors for the month of Av are Stephen and Wendy Tracy.
This picture's at 73? Really? Some shit like that. And Kabbalah sucks. Everything sucks. Do the thing.
This topic becomes very interesting because archaeology has revealed some things about the early development of Israelite religion. Some scholars think that parts of biblical imagery fall in ideas carefully. Number 1, the Canaanite religious world. Before the Israelites emerged as a distinct people, the region of Canaan had its own religion. One of the main gods was El was viewed as the father of the gods, the creator, a wise and ancient divine king. Interestingly, the Hebrew Bible frequently uses the word El, God, as one of the examples include El Shaddai, El Shaddai, God Almighty, El Elyon, El Elyon, God Most High. Some scholars think that the Israelites originally identified Yua, the God of Israel, with the deity. Number 2, the divine council. Canaanite religion described a council of divine beings. In mythology, the god El presided over a group of divine sons. Something similar appears in the Bible. Example passage. Psalm 82 describes El El. God stands in the council of El. The text mentions B'nai Elohim, sons of God. This suggests a heavenly court or assembly. Later Jewish theology interpreted these beings as angels, not gods. 3. The storm god imagery, and victory over chaos. Some biblical describe Yahweh, the God of Israel, use similar imagery. Example 29 describes God with thunder and lightning. The text says, Kulei Olam, the voice of the Lord is over the waters. This type of storm god language. However, the Bible transforms applying it to one supreme God. Number 4, archaeological evidence. 2 archaeological discoveries are often discussed. One comes from inscriptions mentioning Yahweh and his Asherah. Asherah was a goddess associated with fertility. She appears in Canaanite religion as the consort of El-Zerah. Some scholars think this was a religion among ancient Israelites, not official biblical theology. The biblical prophets strongly attack development toward monotheism. Many historians think Israelite religion developed in stages. Early stage, Yahweh worship among Israelites alongside other regional beliefs. Prophetic stage, prophets such as Isaiah and Jeremiah strongly attack idol worship. Later stage, Judaism becomes strictly monotheistic. Example, Ani Yehovah, I am the Lord, and there is no other. Number 6, Judaism is just a Canaanite religion. Even if early Israelites shared cultural roots with their neighbors, the tradition radically reshaped those ideas. Key transformations include rejection of idols, ethical covenant theology, universal creator God, prohibition of divine images. These ideas became foundational to Judaism. Number 7, connection to Latism. Interestingly, later Jewish mysticism, such as Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, reintroduced the concept of a heavenly structure of divine forces, but in a monotheistic framework. Examples include Sphirot, Sephirot, divine emanations, Malachim, Malachim, angels. However, these are viewed as manifestations of one divine reality, not separate gods. Summary archaeology and scholarship suggest that early Israelite religion developed within the Canaanite cultural environment. Some biblical imagery reflects that background. However, the Bible gradually transforms those ideas into a unique form of ethical monotheism, centered on Yahweh, the God of Israel. We can also explain something extremely interesting related to this discussion. I think the earliest worship of Yahweh, the God of Israel, regions such as Midian, Edom, not Canaan. The evidence for that is fascinating.
Purity, and he's also carefully true to the So his issues are being asked. Father is someone who is just looking and searching for extra time for extra purity.
In Judaism, Satan or adversary is not an evil independent God. Judaism is strictistic. Nothing opposes God as a rival force. Satan is generally understood as a type of angel whose job is to accuse. 1. Meaning of the word Satan. The Hebrew word Satan, accuser or adversary, is originally a job description, personal name. In the Hebrew Bible, it can refer to in the heavenly persecutor or opponent. Number 2, Satan in the Hebrew Bible. 2 famous places show this role clearly. In the book of Job. In the book of Job, Satan appears among angels. He acts like a prosecuting attorney in God's court. God praises Job's righteousness. Satan argues that Job is only righteous because life is easy. God allows Satan to test Job. Important point, Satan cannot act without God's permission. In the book of Zechariah chapter 3, Satan stands accusing the high priest Joshua in a heavenly courtroom. Again, literature such as the Talmud explains Satan, close quote. This connects 3 ideas. Concept, Hebrew, meaning. Satan, tested accuser, prosecutor in heaven, evil inclination, yitzir hara, evil impulse, inner temptation, angel of death, melech hamavet, angel of death, brings death. So in rabbinic thought, Satan may represent the force that tests humans morally. 4. Key difference from Christian. In Judaism, Satan does not justice. Think of him as a divine courtroom, not an enemy of God. Number 5. Simple summary. In Judaism, Satan is usually understood as an angel with a specific role, a heavenly prosecutor, sometimes identified with the evil inclination within humans. He works for God, not against God. If you want, I can. Fascinating how Satan actually changed from a heavenly prosecutor in Judaism into the cosmic devil figure in Christianity and later folklore. The history of that transformation is very interesting. In Judaism, the Archangel Michael, who is like God, is one of the most important angels. Is usually understood as the great protector of the Jewish people. 1. Meaning of the name. Hebrew name Michael, who is like God. Rhetorical question that emphasis is equal to God. It is not saying Michael is like God, saying no one can be compared to God. Michael in the Hebrew Bible. Michael appears in the prophetic book of Daniel. In Daniel, he is called, open quote, Michael, the great prince who stands for the children of your people, close quote. This means he is seen as a heavenly guardian of Israel. He is described as a Sar, prince or ruling angel, a protector of the Jewish nation, a spiritual warrior against hostile forces. Number 3, Michael in Rabbinic Judaism. In the Talmud and Midrash, Michael becomes even more prominent. He is often described as the defender of Israel, an advocate who argues for mercy, the leader of the angels of kindness. Rabbinic tradition sometimes contrasts him with Gabriel, the great angel. Michael equals mercy, Gabriel equals judgment. 4, Michael in Jewish mysticism. In Kabbalah, especially texts like the Zohar, is associated with the Sephira Chesed, Chesed, kindness, the right side of the divine structure, the angelic world of Moriah, create. He represents divine passion and protection. Number 5, popular Jewish traditions. In Jewish prayers and folklore, Michael is often one of 4 great archangels, commonly listed as angel, role, Michael, mercy, protector of Israel, Gabriel, judgment and strength, Raphael, healing, wisdom or light. In the bedtime prayer before sleep, Kriyat Shem al Hamita, many Jews say, open quote, at my right is Michael, at my left is Gabriel, close quote. Number 6, important Jewish idea about angels. Even though Michael is powerful, Judaism stresses angels have no independent power, they only carry out God's will. Jews do not pray to angels, all prayer goes directly to God. Simple summary, in Judaism, Archangel Michael is the guardian angel of Israel, a heavenly advocate for mercy, one of the highest angels in God's court, a symbol of protection. If you want, I can also explain something very interesting: the hierarchy of angels in Jewish mysticism. The 10 levels of angels described by Maimonides. It gives a map of how ancient Judaism is.
Of bringing it in. Okay, so the Gemara says 1 second, there is something we're thinking about it. So remember, the Gemara is questioning its principle. The Gemara put out there like a law, a principle. The principle was something once in very fast. Right? It also gives a possibility. It cannot change the reality of a certainty. So is that actually? So you are said, but I neither have a right sufficient muscle shall not have a face. Not a right sufficient muscle shall not see the after the know. Very interesting things are there was once a story of a maid serpent. I don't say now, again, we're going to this is a Jewish woman. A Jewish woman who worked for a Nazi. What's a Nazi? Rashi says over here, Gavra Alama Israel Hagai. Make off of that, she worked from Nazi in the city of Giza. Okay, what happened? She had to make the body. She had a miscarriage. And everyone said, interestingly enough, it was coming that a woman had a miscarriage, you have to take care of it. But an interesting thing is, this is also part of the thing. You put her in from in a just in other words, in a nondescript way. In general, what's the halacha is,
You're fired. Go fuck yourself.
Just so many things. Casey.
So what happened? So she was carried, and she took a miscarriage in a pit, which happened and peeled over the pit. Now why did the peel over the pit? There was something about. So you have to pass it for her. Associated with it now, the duration of 2 months depends on what. So here, before we went ahead,